This is the Oakwyn Podcast, featuring Morgan Brown and Michael Yu.
Welcome to the Oakwyn Podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Michael Yu.
I'm the other host, Morgan Brown.
And I'm the Podfather.
Do you guys do it like? Do you guys do any accents well?
Oh, I do I do no accents.
Oh, really?
Don't
You
even ask
So,
me
like,
to
when
do
you're
one.
reading stories to your kids, right?
I
So,
do
do
it
you
all.
do like voices?
Yes.
Okay,
Oh,
so
yeah.
then
Big
come on.
time.
Yeah,
But
like,
not accents. I do like superhero stuff.
Okay.
Like I am. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Like
yeah,
I get
yeah.
into like I don't
Okay,
know.
like what- okay,
yesterday
like,
I
give me
was
an example.
reading I was reading this book about a genie.
Okay.
Okay, so a genie to Quinn, and I was like, I am the genie. But then when he got really big, I was like, I will take care of you. This is right. Like it's just like
Okay.
it's just my volume goes higher.
No,
So
we
you
can't.
fluctuate in volume, but then
Yeah.
there's no like
Yeah.
change in
Yeah.
inflections.
Morgan louder or Morgan quieter.
Yeah. And I do like the Annie Delvey. Have you guys watched that show?
Oh my
No,
god.
what's
Anna
that?
Delvey.
What's that? What's
Julia, what's her name?
Uh,
Julia Louis Dreyfus?
No,
No.
the
Oh.
one that's in Ozark, the
Yeah,
blonde
Ozark
girl,
girl.
in Ozark.
Don't
She
know.
is amazing, actually. But she's
That
like,
Russian-
I am. I have to hear her again to do it. But Desi like laughs so hard because she's like, was like, you sound exactly like her. It's like a mix between a bad. Do you hate it?
It's
Okay.
like
What-
okay.
Okay, give me some context. I'm
Okay.
lost. I'm lost.
Okay, the
here.
amount of talent that this girl has
Yes.
to have
So
to
talented.
okay, the girl that she's portraying
Okay.
is Anna Delvey, who is
Okay.
born in Russia, originally a Russian
Okay.
speaker, moved to Germany,
Right.
Yeah.
and
See?
so learned German. So now speaks English. So she has an English accent or she's speaking English with a Russian German accent.
Yeah.
And can you imagine as just like a normal English speaker actress
Right.
trying to like
This is the actress.
make that happen
And
in your
her.
voice? It's such an interesting like some
It's
people
so
hate
good.
it, but it's like very
So
accurate.
it's a unique kind of blended accent of different places, and she is an actor of like Okay.
She's just
It's
such
so
a.
good.
She's so good, and it's a very good. She's so talented. She's such a talented actress.
Okay.
She's
So
like the
dope.
next Anna Del.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. Anyways,
So the next one, the Illuminati are gonna.
gonna really take
it's
it
kind
up.
of like it's elevating. I
Scientologists.
see. Oh, I see. Oh, gee, of course.
Scientologist, you know, of course. What's your accent?
So I love doing like reading stories to Soph. Like one of our story of passion. So like one of our ex-agents in the office who retired from real estate, her name's Jenny Chen.
Yes.
She wrote a book called Emmett's Box,
Yes.
a child's book that I've rated on Amazon. Check it out on Amazon, people. So Jenny Chen wrote a book called Emmett's Box, and basically I read it to Soph. We had a great time. So yeah, I do all the accents.
Oh,
Like,
do you?
I try to. I mean, It's
Yeah.
really poor. Like I'm
Okay, give me
giving
one
it-
accent.
yeah, like the dad accent.
Okay,
would
do
be
the dad
like,
accent.
Are you? I don't even know what I do, but I try to keep it straight. So like that dad would be the same voice through the whole story. Like I've read a lot of Dr. Zeus and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So Horton
Yeah.
Hears a Who. So Horton talks like this.
Oh my god, I love
Yeah.
that.
You know, because he's Horton.
So
he's
animated.
He's a like a elephant.
Does she read? Does she sit through the whole book?
No.
I know, like I can't handle
Well,
any.
she's a baby.
No, Quinn sat through every book.
What?
Quinn sat through every book, and Lennon, I can't keep her. I'm always like holding her like this. I'm like, okay, I'm reading you a book like this, so that she just listens to it. Because I'm like,
She's like squiggling
squinting
out.
out. It's
So
just
you're
one of-
like you're forcing it.
I'm
to
forcing.
put her
it. I
in
have
a
to.
headlock to
I
read
have to force it. I'm sorry.
Like I'm somewhat forcing it, so like it'll take it. Like we'll read 1 or 2 pages, and then that'll be it. And then I got to remember
Yes.
what accents I like banked for. Horton Hears a Who took me forever.
Lennon's
read.
into like the the touched ones right
Yeah.
now. All the
Well,
touched.
you know, you talk
things.
like your mom like said like every kid has their kind of
the thing. I know.
Yeah.
I'm like, come on, Lennon. But I'm like, I'm trying to get her to talk right now. It's just been the hardest thing.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Has she?
say
She said
mama.
has she kind of gone there yet?
She's said like a couple things, but lately this is so funny. Okay, she has been taking this like old. Okay, so one of our friends' kids, Elfie, and our good friends Beth and Chuck,
Mm-hmm.
they
Chuck is a good golfer.
Is he a good golfer?
He's so good.
What?
Chuck, Sean, and I have gone out like 2 or 3 times. He's great.
I didn't know he was such a good golfer.
He's a very good golfer.
He's so funny, but he bought me this like fake phone for Lenny. Because I told him all she wants to do is just touch my phone. She just wants to take because it's bright and shiny and whatever. And so I'm always
Learned
hiding it.
behavior from
I know.
parents.
And so lately she's been picking it up and going, hiya? Like so cute.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So to the ear.
Like this, hiya?
Okay.
But I'm like, that's not hello. Say hello.
She's figuring
hard.
it out.
Was it one?
That's
She's
kinda-
getting it.
When did your kids start speaking?
Well, different times. Like my daughter was, I think, already kind of. She had like looking back at like you get like the year ago photos
Yes.
and stuff like that.
Best.
Like my daughter a year ago could like string together like perfect sentences, and like even
perfect.
like probably 3 months ago, a year ago, kind of thing. But like my son is still kind of like can't say S's or L's, and
Yes.
he's like he's putting like very small sentences together, but he's just very different. And, meanwhile, his motor skills, like he was walking earlier, they just kind of grow it.
See, it's opposite.
ways,
Quinn was
yeah.
opposite. And now Lennon's like climbing up everything. You're right. The motor skills are so high.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm like, do you need to talk? But Quinn, by this time, Quinn was like talking. Like he was like really, there.
Yeah, so I think it is very dependent on that little individual and where they come from. So like, yeah, but it's kind of like
So
yeah,
cute.
Soph is she doesn't like we have to we do the stories like 2 pages, 3 pages at a time. She likes singing. Like she likes hear like so like I try to sing to her every day. So yeah, it's kind of fun.
I
Yeah,
love it.
it's awesome.
I feel like because your wife has an accent,
Yeah.
right? She might have a little
She's
accent.
ethnic people.
Yeah, do you know what I mean? Because there's
exotic.
Yeah,
she's got
probably.
because Priya's got a
Yeah.
pretty. For most people, it could come off as heavy, but you don't notice it because it's your wife.
Yeah, well, I noticed it when we first started dating. I was
Yeah.
like, where is she from?
Yeah, because she's got this very special
French.
accent.
So she's from Mauritius, which is which is an island in the Indian Ocean, but it was a French colony. So French is the first language of Mauritius.
Yes.
And they kind of speak in a kind of Cajun tone. So it's kind of like Louisiana Cajun style because it's
They
and
do.
all those
Yeah.
French colonies have this kind of weird mix of like
Yeah.
Cajun
Chicken.
Cajun chicken chopped up in a bowl. The fajita
So
Cajun
funny.
chicken. I'm like,
Like,
I
oh
couldn't
my
take it.
gosh.
I
Especially
have
'cause
to-
I'm
I can't
sitting there-
delete that from my brain.
I'm sitting there being like, can we stop this?
Okay, that's
Anyways,
that's
that
a
was so
referral. That's a
funny.
callback from last podcast, guys. Just
Listen to the
I
other
can't
one, okay,
think about
guys?
it
It's
anymore.
way cool.
Can't
So
do
we're gonna. I feel like we, yeah. I mean, accents are really hard to do. Really hard to do.
Yeah, some people have it like, but you have a background in improv and
I do.
and
Yeah,
improv and acting from growing
I do.
up.
Yeah,
So like, yeah, so you didn't kind of.
I did. I had, but it was so lost. Now it's been 20+ years. It's weird because I'm now living where I grew up,
Yep.
and I was telling this.
call back to different flashbacks, eh?
It's so funny. It's like really. It's like a very strange thing. Because I was telling this to I don't know if I was telling this to my husband. I was like, is it weird that like when you say, oh, have you lived? Where do you live now? Oh, I live back where I grew up. It's kind of like, is that a bad thing or is that a good thing?
It depends on where you grew up.
That's exactly what
if
he
I
says.
said that, it would be like, oh, what's
You're going
happened
back.
in your life? Like for you
Yeah.
to go back to that 5,000 person town and
Mm-hmm.
probably work at the mill. Like nothing wrong with working at a mill, but I have a kind of higher aspirations
Yeah,
in life
yeah,
now. But
yeah.
you grew up in Carrisdale, right? So
I know, but it's funny.
I mean,
It's like a weird thing.
yeah. So if you're proud of where you're from, then there's nothing
It's
wrong
changed.
with that.
It's changed a lot. Like it's changed a lot since since I've grown. 20 years ago
How
was
has
a
it
long time.
changed?
Mm-hmm.
There's way more. It's way more wealthy
Where
in Carousel.
now?
And people think there's a lot of Asian, but there's actually still lots of Caucasian.
Mhm.
Like in
It
Carousel.
is-
It's a nice
more
mix.
mixed than
People
I
think it
even
is.
thought. I thought
Yeah.
it was like because Morgan and I obviously live
Yeah.
5 blocks away from each other.
Sean's like, oh, you know that our neighbor down the road is 98 and she wants to sell. I was like, I'm gonna get Mike to go list because it's like a beautiful home. It's beautiful. I was like 98.
That's like a big marker. I've been listening to another podcast, The Drive by Dr. Peter Attia.
Yes.
And one of his like goals is to be a centurion.
Centurion.
Mm-hmm.
So like 98-year-old neighbor. That's kind of like
Yeah, and she's
so
got-
I want to be
impressive.
100 years old now too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she's incredible. She's out there
So
gardening.
what do you think is there a secret to her longevity that you've observed?
Well, my grandmother Joan, was Sean's grandmother.
Oh, yeah.
She's 98, and I asked her,
Yeah.
and she said to me, "It's because I used
How-
to." She goes, "It's because I always was moving."
moving.
She says, "It's because I was always moving," and she's like, people would always be like, "Oh, you're going to those classes really like even like workout classes later in life, like 60, 70."
Yep.
She's like, "It's because I was always moving."
Mm.
And she's the only thing with Joan, she lost a lot of her hearing. So
Okay.
she'll sit in a room and she can't hear anything. So we've
She
even
doesn't
got
have
her.
hearing aids.
The hearing aids don't work. It's that
Really?
bad. Yeah, it's that bad.
The technology for hearing aids
It's
is
incredible.
incredible now.
The one we have is like $25,000. Like we got the best ones.
Whoa.
It's ridiculous, and
Yeah.
she still can't
still
hear.
can't hear.
Yeah.
That's surprising.
So we have to hold this thing when we're talking. Like it's called it's called like Robert. We call it like Robert. Everyone's grabbing Robert, and we talk into it, and then she can
So
hear us
wireless microphone.
because it's like a wireless microphone.
Oh, it's a
Yeah.
microphone.
Yeah,
Okay.
and so you just have to go like this, and so you just talk like this, and
Yeah.
and she can hear if I do it that. But if you put it down like on the table, and there's
So
like a
do
bunch
you
of
use your
people,
genie voice when you talk to your, your grandma?
really loud genie voice
Yeah.
when I'm coming out of the genie.
Yeah, it's very loud. Yeah, that's like because the technology for hearing aids is like insane now.
It is.
Yeah, and so her secret to the century mark is to keep moving.
Keep moving and bland food.
And which
Bland food.
bland,
Like
food?
not like super heavy milk and like
Okay.
you know what I
What
mean?
about
Like
spices?
spices. I think she's kind of Britishy type of
Right.
style. Like she's like British.
So that's a secret, bland food.
well,
I
if
don't
you think
know.
about it, it's
There's-
just less ingredients.
Yeah,
So if you think about it, it's simple food.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's probably easier on the
But-
digestion.
Yeah.
There's a lot of, aren't there like a lot of? I know a lot of Indian families that have like their grandparents or whatever really really elderly, like in the 90s, and they're very
Spice?
much they're
Yeah.
like, give me all
Yeah.
the spice I can get. It cleans up
Cool.
my system. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah,
That so there's different perspectives.
different.
Right?
You know,
There
so
is.
they've studied the longest so the Okinawans, so from Japan.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okinawans, Italy.
Italy.
Italy
There's
has
this one island.
Yep, Italy has
Yes.
the most. I think Italy and Okinawa have the. I don't know about now with the nuclear stuff in Japan, but
Oh, let's not talk about that one.
It's not.
But yeah, did you watch that? There's a show on that actually
there?
about the Italians and how he says like red wine movement.
yeah,
and
so
just less
like
stress.
What are some of the consistent type of things to kind of hit that longevity factor? So the conclusion of this doctor. Well, I don't know if it's conclusion. I think it's a work in progress for him. But just what I've been kind of like inferring is the genetics play the number one role.
Yeah, of course.
Like people,
Yes.
some people just got a great cardiovascular system and they have it
Mhm.
because their lifestyles, like in Okinawa and Italy, actually aren't really that conducive to long life in a sense, because like if you're a centurion, you're more likely to have been a smoker than your average.
That's
Are
so
you
crazy.
serious?
Yeah, which it doesn't make sense. Like to have smoked in your life.
Yeah.
So there are a greater proportion of this. They're not saying like every centurion, but then like on average, let's say 25% of the general population that dies at 80.
Yeah.
Like
Take that away.
was a smoker.
Yeah.
There's like 42% of like I don't know
I
the
know.
exact
Yeah.
numbers of centurions smoked, and then you're like, what the
Wow.
hell? And so that's incongruent for longevity, right? And he's like, also like some dietary things.
I think
and also
dietary
some
is
like body
huge.
fat percentage averages and stuff like that. Like they have a higher body fat percentage average.
Oh,
than-
and then community. Like community is a big
yeah,
player.
community is a
Oh,
big
yeah.
Like being-
social.
Oh no, like being
conscious-
friends,
yeah,
like having friends,
relationships. yeah.
relationships, and putting is a huge reason why you reach those longer ages.
Yeah.
But how do you like? Are you friends with the same people? You got to make new friends, like young friends. If you think about it.
Yeah, I think diverse. So And I was talking about I don't know if we talked about this in another podcast, but it's a pretty interesting topic. So with a different diversity of friends, you get diversity of opinions, and you
course.
get to
Oh, we did talk about that. Yeah.
But you know, just something to really think about, because you know, in our purview online, we're just being like rabbit holed into one kind of like
Yeah.
Group.
talking point, or
Yes.
like, you know, one kind of, you know, kind of aspect of you know, of like political aspects, or you know, it's just going in one direction. But having that diversity of opinions and stuff like that allows you to have discourse, allows you to understand and change your
different
mind,
industries, like don't
challenge yourself, a
challenge
little bit more,
yourself,
right?
Yeah.
Mentally.
I think so too.
Yeah, that's the one thing I'm scared of the most. I could without
What?
being losing your mental
Oh my gosh, I know.
capabilities. Like
Cognitive
Peter, like your granddad,
I know.
Sean's granddad, he was
Sharp as a whip.
Sharp as
but his body was deteriorating.
yeah.
When he
So
passed.
I would, you know, without being kind of, hopefully I get both. Hopefully I get a great healthy body and a healthy mind. But if I was to choose one, mind.
You know, Peter. Okay, I gotta read this to you guys because I think this is funny.
Because it would almost be torture, right? Like to have a healthy body but an unhealthy mind.
Yeah, for you and for your loved ones, right? Like they say, it's the Alzheimer's is like the long goodbye, because you never get to really say goodbye to a person. They just kind of go. Their personalities.
It's really that's really
It's terrifying.
terrifying.
It's terrifying,
isn't it?
Yeah, it's really.
Have you met
terrifying.
anyone that has had that?
I personally, I don't have anybody in my family at this point. I think my family has been, being a bunch of Saskatchewanites, has been more live hard, die fast kind of thing. But
Right.
their body goes before their mind goes. But you know, I'd imagine it's going to creep up, right? It's only a matter of time before you have that touch your life, right?
Yeah. So I personally don't know anybody that has experienced that. My grandparents I was very close to. They, three of them, one of them died very early, in his early 50s. But the other three grandparents that I had lived over 90. So none of them reached the 100 age. But
Still 90s, pretty.
90 is a great run. And they all had their mental capabilities, like full mental capabilities.
Wow.
So
Okay.
Peter was writing up to his last days. This is my husband's my grandfather, and his the aunt who's very close to us sent us some of what he was writing,
Can you?
and I'm gonna read it.
Can you please?
I'm gonna read it because I think this is something that
Can you use a serious voice and not the genie voice?
I love this. I love this because Peter was like, and I could cry thinking about it, but I can't cry because he was that great. He was that great. Like, I loved him, but as a person, he was impeccable. He was impeccable. And so he wrote something that I thought
Peter
was
Wright.
Peter Wright,
Peter Wright.
who was basically just the best. He's the best.
I
And,
only met him a couple times. Wonderful
so
man.
I love what he
Wonderful
said.
man.
He wrote this in one of the later dates of his life. He says, to do the best job I can for my wife and family, to be loving, to be understanding, to be patient, to be kind, to be fun, to be involved with them to the right amount, out, not too much. I love that. I think it's like you could be with them, but don't be too much. I thought it was such a, to go out with family, to go with, to go out of my way to help my family. And I thought that was, he was so incredible. But what I love is he goes, what my lifetime goals are. He says, to become a good person as I can, to be the best person I can, to be the best I can for my family and to my friends, and to be well for my friends, to have fun in a social sense. And then he just very like, he goes, he was a Christian man. And he said, you know, to do the best in my job that I can, compensate with balance, but not to compensate the balance of my rest of my life. Very simple things, but like just tons of things that he wrote. And
Was he just like journaling? Like he's
yeah,
just
like
it's
to become a good person as I can, to be loving. So this is what he thinks a good person is: to be loving, understanding, helping others, cheerful, realistic. I love that. Good exercise program, of course, have fun with everything, to be patient, reliable, honest, balanced, relaxed, and to be less controlled. thought that was so beautiful, right?
Wow. Yeah.
So
it kind
he's
of reminds me of like, so Benjamin Franklin has like I think a list of virtues or like something I can't remember from his biography. That's what he wrote
Like
is
that.
very reminiscent of
yes.
that. And Benjamin Franklin was like an amazing mind. And
Yeah.
so yeah, really cool.
But I think everyone needs to, like we talked about slowing down. I think everyone needs to like take a second, especially during this time when we're getting these kind of a little bit more of a slower markets and not balanced market, and just like figure out your why, figure out what you're doing this for, figure out what your life is about. Take a moment, journalize, and just like take a second and take a big deep breath. And also like we talk about longevity. I've definitely been doing a lot of this in my journal, which is, what do you want to be? This the only way that you're ever going to be it is if you allow to see it.
completely.
Yeah.
May I make a confession?
Okay.
So I should put a screen.
Oh, yes. Hold on. Let me get my priest.
Your rosary.
Rosary.
Thank you. Yes. Okay.
Oh my gosh.
Your
You know how
collar
many Hail
is a
Marys
little-
I've done in my life?
Your collar is a little bit
So many Hail
crooked.
So many Hail Marys.
Father Morgan,
I know.
I have sinned. So
Confession.
here's a confession on the Oakwyn podcast.
Ooh.
So I just speaking about those virtues that Peter was talking about in his writings. It just kind of like a well of guilt kind of flooded over me, and because I didn't behave very appropriately with an agent, and I'm just I haven't reconciled it yet because I've called a couple times to apologize, but rightfully so. These kind of overtures were not responded to. So I know she listens to the podcast, so maybe this is my chance to do that. Had a very uncharacteristic conversation with a dear, dear friend, colleague, longtime person that I've seen just become an amazing person and is an amazing person. She was struggling through something, and I really wanted to help. I really, really, that my heart was to help. So I've had instances in the past where I've not given someone everything that I had, like to help them. So I basically resolved in myself, I'm like, I'm going to give her everything I have to help her. And so we set up weekly meetings at my house with my daughter, with my wife, before work, really invited her in. And I wanted to show her and teach her as much wisdom and things that I could. I wrote out a full plan of things that we were going to learn, orders, and I was going to take my time. I was going to be a good friend. I wanted to be a good friend. I wanted to be a good
mentor.
I wanted to like help as much as I could. And she decided that perhaps it was better for her to work somewhere else, and I really took it like as a huge rejection and a huge failure.
Personal, yeah.
I took it personally on myself, and I feel like I got very defensive. It got extraordinarily defensive. No excuses. I apologize. I'm sorry. I made a mistake. No excuses. We set up, instead of that morning, we set up a call instead of a meeting, because I was driving to a funeral of a dear friend of mine that just passed away very young. And maybe it was I'm not making
the right time.
Yeah,
It
I'm
wasn't
not
the right
making,
time for
but
you to
it's not
pick
an
up.
excuse. It's not an excuse. It's not an excuse. Because I wanted to be dutiful. I was like, okay, instead of coming over to the house, like, let's do a call. I'm gonna be driving to his funeral. Like, I was like, I didn't tell her that I was driving to a funeral, but like, I'm driving to like an appointment, so like I can do it on the road. So I was driving to a funeral, wearing like whatever, and we were having this conversation, and a lot of things were happening in my mind. No excuses because I didn't I didn't behave well.
It wasn't your best self.
No, it wasn't my best self. It
Yeah,
was like,
he wasn't caught out.
and
very...
when I heard the news that she wanted to go work somewhere else, I felt very rejected. I felt like I was not good enough. I felt like even with all the effort and impact, and I spent so like lots of time, energy, efforts to help, it wasn't good enough. And it wasn't about, it had nothing to do with her. I just didn't feel good enough. I felt like I gave it everything I had, and it's still not enough. And why do I give everything I can and it's not enough? So that was what was kind of.
I think you took it was anyways. It wasn't the right timing for it.
Yeah,
I think the mistake was to pick up the phone. It wasn't the right time.
I blew up.
Yeah, it wasn't the right time for you to pick up that phone call.
And I blew up. And
Apologize.
I got angry, and I said things that I shouldn't have said. I made a mistake. And 2 days later, I was like, I made a mistake. I tried to call to apologize. The answer didn't get answered, rightfully so. Second time around, tried again, didn't work. She's not, and rightfully so. She's not, I don't know if because it was kind of like a bit of a whirlwind for me. So I'm trying to recall, like I was writing in my journal how, like, what did I actually say? Was it?
Yeah.
I don't think it was. Not trying to lessen the severity
I want to
of
know.
it.
I want to know.
But it wasn't that egregious. I
think it was just out of your character to her.
It was so out of character
her.
for me because I was like, do you think anyone's gonna care as much? I was like, is gonna care as much, and you're gonna go somewhere that they don't care about you, and I care about you so much.
You know what's so funny? During this whole time that you're talking, I think that the way that you like handle yourself, that there was like it was actually not, the reaction probably was up to something else in your life.
Yeah, obviously I was on my way to a funeral.
No, but like also like it could have been a reaction to something else that you couldn't express in another circumstance.
Hey,
always something like that.
Yeah,
it's always something like that. It's never about that specific thing.
Yeah, totally.
And so she was just in the run of it, right?
I haven't fully unpacked it yet. So
okay.
I'm this, if I'm like compartmentalizing into this moment, I know she listens to the podcast, so like
I think you blacked out a bit because you can't remember.
Yeah. Well, I'm pretty good with remembering things. I wrote it down pretty shortly after because like I have a pretty reasonably good memory.
Yeah,
so,
you do.
Yeah, so like,
mine is like a fish out of water. I'm like, what?
Where am I right now? Oh yeah, I'm podcasting.
You know what's funny? I like have a very bad memory, but I remember how I feel.
So yeah, so that's.
Is that weird?
No, I think that's how your memory banks work. That's how your like kind of long-term.
So I know how I feel.
Based on your feelings versus
when I'm
technical like things
little
like
things.
vocabulary or language, or settings or spatially, right? It's just a form of intelligence.
Okay.
And so
I'm intelligent. That's what. That's what I got out of that.
She is intelligent. A little bit too smart. Smarty pants.
Okay.
Just to
wrap
up.
this.
To
Let's
wrap up my
that.
confession.
I'm a confession.
And I hope that you guys listening to this will respect privacy as well and not try to decipher like
who was this?
Like who please respect that. I the reason why I say this is because not to garner like be a martyr or not to like garner sympathy or pity, but I genuinely want, after hearing Peter's kind of writing, it just like really it just felt so disappointed in myself that I felt like I had to kind of confess of things that I did wrong. So if you're listening to this, I'm very, very sorry, and for that person, if you're listening to this and you're curious about who it is, please don't ask. please don't try to figure it out out of respect for me
Yes.
and their privacy as well. And all I hope for and wish for is a happy and great life for that individual, because they deserve it and they're a good person and they're more than enough just the way they are. And that's it.
Like, you're gonna make me cry, buddy.
Yeah, it's disappointing. But
Yeah.
you know,
But it's a learning experience.
it's a learning
right?
experience, and I think being on podcast, I think people assume that we're like perfect,
Really? I feel like it's opposite. They really know we're not perfect.
Well,
We really peel back.
Really
the
peel back the
kimono.
clothes. here.
So Morgan's awesome. She set up this like amazing event for Cinco de Mayo with our agents, but she got COVID, so she couldn't come. And so she's like, Mike, you
I
should
had a
go.
Negroni last night, guys. Feeling good.
Yeah. No, you should have had a, what do they call them? Margarita.
Yeah.
I would love a margarita right now.
God, you know where has the best margaritas? I
Where?
had one on
Tell me.
Friday.
Tell me now.
Cucillo on, I think it's on Powell.
Powell?
Yeah.
Cuccello
I
is
think
so
you're wrong.
good. Okay.
Brandon,
let's
I'm
go.
gonna challenge you.
Let's have a
margarita.
challenge.
TGI Friday, TGIF.
DJ.
Best margarita in town.
It's all condensed, concentrated.
You know, from the machine, like they pull
yeah.
the slushy machine.
Yeah, that's the best.
Oh.
That's my
margarita.
choice, though.
Okay.
I actually love a good tequila high.
Oh,
It's
that's
so
good.
good,
That's your.
Oh, it's my
alcoholic
choice.
Yeah.
Me and Arlene, when we were in San Diego, I was like, I don't have a kid right now, and we were like, we're super cool. We're like,
That is the least cool thing. So Morgan did this weird, like, Bollywood, like,
Screen or lean. me and Arlene don't get us. Arlene and I are
You have to
such
watch this on
cheapskates.
YouTube now.
We're like, okay, free. We love free things.
Okay, yeah.
So we love
Who
free
doesn't
things.
like
We
a
really
deal?
bond over that, to be honest. We're like, what? Free? So they had free margarita bar, and we were like, we're going for the margaritas.
Well, okay, yeah. So speaking of Cinco de Mayo and the event we had in the North
Yes.
Shore, like I was talking to people, and people were like, "Oh, we listen to the podcast.
were
we
they?
love the podcast."
Aw.
And like you're like, "Ooh," and like we love the podcast so much. You guys are just blah blah blah. And I was like, I was so awkward because our parents never complimented us, right?
Oh no, we were ruined.
Yeah.
As a child.
Morgan and I
It goes
have, like,
deep rooted.
Yeah, it's very deep rooted. Like I've never been complimented.
And you know what happens? Roots, they never leave.
Yeah, so like there's nothing. So if
They
anyone
never
compliments me,
leave.
I immediately like, no, I suck. Like I'm terrible. Look at it. My shoes are old. I was like trying to like deflect,
Deflect.
and I was just like, I don't get it. So like I had people were like, oh. You and Morgan are just so like good.
Oh,
And I was just
gross.
like, I was like, no,
Gross.
I can't take this. And so like but we're not perfect. We're not like
No, we're
we
not
suck.
And we're working it out.
Yeah,
like
we're
Mike and
just-
I are really close. We're both working it out, guys.
Yeah, like
We're trying to figure it out right now.
Exactly. As you guys are listening to this and growing, we are also growing. At
Yes.
the same exact time.
Yeah. And this
So-
is the truth. And you know how else we need to grow? By learning about how to deal with stale listings.
Oh,
the segue.
Stale listings.
okay. I am gonna give that a C plus. Segue.
C plus was my number. That was my letter of choice in high school.
Okay.
I actually never made it past a
Improvement.
C plus.
So
I
that's
was a C plus
That's
student.
a C plus segue.
student,
I
too,
was a
yeah.
C
Good
plus
place to
student.
be.
Yeah, that's a
I got
C
a
plus
B
segue.
like in like a couple things, but like I was mostly just a C plus
Okay.
student. And C minus.
You know what a C plus student is? It's a really smart kid who doesn't feel like trying very hard. So.
That's really what my dad always told
Yeah.
me.
Yeah, same
Or
here.
you could
Yeah.
say lazy.
I'd
I'm
rather
okay
be
with that.
lazy than like.
And not
I think
lazy.
I think lazy people.
I think you're wrong.
I think lazy people are kind of smart because if you think about it, because lazy people have figured out a way to cheat the system.
It's really just efficiency is what it is.
Okay, guys. Up next, stale listings.
Thanks for listening to the Oakwyn podcast. If you liked our Oakwyn podcast,
Yeah.
please rate us 5 out of 5 on that platform of choice. But also reach out to us
Yeah,
if you're
yeah.
thinking of changing, making a positive change in your life.
Yeah, here's a hot tip on how to do that is you go to oakwyn.com
Evolve 2022.
Right, and beyond learning something from one of our leaders, you're gonna get a free piece of mystery swag with open gear. I have some on right now.
Okay,
I have our
honestly,
tennis shirt.
the gear is dope right now.
Yeah, Morgan has designed some new fresh gear. I'm rocking the golf/tennis shirt.
And the notebooks, the new notebooks are dark navy blue.
Oh wow,
We're switching it up.
That's different because we're black and white.
We're
and
black.
gold.
We're trying to go. We're kind of trying to, get out of the staleness. Going into stale.
Going into stale listing. Oh,
Let's
you're on
go.
today.
Okay, rate us, guys. Rate us.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we are back, guys. We're talking all things stale listings.
What
is a stale listing, Mike?
I don't want to we're just calling it stale listing because it would be easy for people to figure out. But stale listings
It's
are
an unsuccessful listing.
Yeah, for listings that have been on the market for a while, because obviously the market's shifting. What happens when you have a listing that's been on the market for 3 months, 4 months? How do we get it sold? What are we doing? And what?
I think a stale listing is over a month.
Okay.
Depends on the market you're in.
Yeah, it depends
right?
on the market you're in. So we can frame that a little bit. So you want to look at your average days on market in the on the market.
Yes.
right
Okay,
now,
that's good. Frame
and
that.
kind of frame it out. So this is a stale listing would probably be described as something that is.
So the average right now in the Greater Vancouver Board is 20 days.
Is that still 20
Still
days?
20
oh my
days.
god, I got a lot of stale listings.
20 days because we
yeah,
have
so
a very
it-
a very low supply.
There's still a low supply.
We still have a low supply, but I want people to gear up for possibly 60 to 90 days.
Right. So a normalized market, typically things get absorbed in 45, 60 days, 90-day possibly periods. I know when I first started, I used to brag about having a 28-day average days on market when the average in the industry was 75 days at that time.
That's crazy. I mean, tell me a little bit of a story about a stale listing you had.
Okay. Yeah. So, do you have one first? I'm just trying to go through.
I
the
have
memory
so
banks.
many stale listing. I mean, recently, the last 2 years has not been stale, so it's very hard to recollect.
So we have to go deep.
You got to go
into the
really
memory
deep.
banks, yeah.
Yeah, I had one stale listing. I had townhouses. Townhouses were always in downtown Vancouver because I mostly specialize down there. Townhouses always have sold a little bit. They're a little harder to sell compared to an average condo. So the days on market are higher, and it's because of the stairs, obviously, and the square footage in the stairs. So it usually makes for a smaller space. So there was a time where I was doing a lot of townhouse sales, and there was I had a one stale listing that was sitting for 60 days or something like that, but that was still average. And we had to really kind of pull up our socks and be we have to think of all the different creative ways in marketing this property.
Right.
And I think what was at that time, people were not working as much downtown. They were still keeping it a live place as opposed to a workplace. So what we did is we actually found out where who was coming into work in downtown Vancouver, and we started marketing to that group.
Oh wow. Okay. So
yeah, it's specific
demographic
demographic,
marketing.
and that was the property was vacant. We staged it, which staging was, I think, if you have a stale listing and it's vacant, I think that does a huge number. And I highly recommend it. I actually I have 2 vacant properties right now. One that's non-vacant that Donovan came on. His sold within 4 days. The other 2 are just sitting. And it's because I think you feel that when you walk into a staged property, you can really see how you could live. So we staged it. We did a very narrow target market, and then we did a bonus structure on it. And with those 3 things, we successfully sold it. But I think the biggest thing that I can say about stale listings is me as an agent, my biggest duty in that is really creating clear expectations for the sellers. Because at any point they could have terminated that listing. They could have been angry at me. And I think that's what people have to remember is when we're leaning into those longer days, is setting those expectations to your sellers, but also taking the focus off of what I'm doing as an agent and shifting it more onto what the market's doing. And that's one of my biggest tips is really creating that transparency of what's happening in the market will still allows the relationship with the client to be productive.
Right. that's such a good
Yeah.
tip, right? To have that correct perspective and,
Yeah.
and working with that client. Yeah. So I remember a sale
Okay,
listing.
leave me your sale listing.
A really good one. So this took me probably 6 months to sell.
Mhm.
So
House.
it was
Condo?
a small condo in Richmond.
Okay.
So the condo building in Richmond that I was selling in is shaped like a U. So it's shaped like a U. And specifically, there's this list. There's 2 listings. There's listings that are right in that crotch unit of the U. So they're like L-shaped units that are in the crotch of these buildings. So the crotch is kind of like the arm, like a perpendicular type of unit.
The corner.
That's the corner unit that's on the inside. So these ones face north, so they were really dark, and they were kind of in a very
Ooh.
weird shape. So the second bedroom was triangular
Ooh.
to kind of compensate for the space. So it was a very odd layout. The seller was a great lady, PF, great lady, and so essentially, there's a couple really big drawbacks with this listing. One of them was that the layout was very strange. So you had this crotch L shape, like the second bedroom was very small,
Okay.
and also
awkward.
in that crotch unit there was north facing, so you got no light at all, like zero natural light at all, and
That's hard.
so it was a tough listing to sell, and the market wasn't hot, so we were just struggling with it. And she needed a certain price to hit,
That was
to,
it.
to get the property she needed a certain price, which was probably a little bit above market to in order for her to sell. She needed to sell. She needed to move.
Was she living in?
She was living there as
Okay.
well.
Yeah.
So a lot of challenges with that listing. So basically, I threw the kitchen sink at it, in terms of marketing and in terms of doing open houses, and nothing was actually working. So I kind of looked at it, and I kept in constant so this is a really big tip: don't hide from your clients.
Never hide.
Never hide from your clients.
Yes. Good
So,
tip. Really good tip.
When you have something that's been on the market for a while, give a weekly update. Call the client. Let them know what's going on. Let
Put
them
the
know.
time in.
Put the time in. Be honest as well. Don't
Yeah.
sugarcoat
Don't
things.
sugarcoat it.
Tell them. Like I told PF, I was like, this one, they need a light. And what kind of happened was a little bit of a mental shift in myself. So
Okay.
when I was showing the property, I was kind of like scared of them talking about the natural light. I was scared of them talking about this tiny second bedroom that's shaped of a triangle that has a closet that when you open the closet, it's like on an angle. And so there is no actual closet in that room, but there's a closet door. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know what I'm trying to say, right?
Yes.
And so I was like, don't open that closet.
You got scared.
Yeah. So I had to shift my mindset a little bit.
Yes. This is a key thing, people.
Yeah. So I had to shift my mindset a little bit on taking these things as an advantage.
Yes.
And what ended up happening, it did
Sorry,
take a
this
long
is-
time,
Yes.
but we successfully sold it after 6 months. Now we found the right buyer. So this is the context.
Context.
So we turned all the disadvantages of this property into advantages.
Yes.
So this buyer worked a graveyard shift. So basically they slept all day long. So they
need no natural light.
They did not want any natural light.
Those people exist.
Yeah, so they
people
work
exist.
at night. They're a night owl person.
Wow, yeah.
He's a complete night owl. And
Isn't
so
that crazy when people do that?
yeah, so there are night owls out there. So I needed
What
to
a
sell this to a
graveyard.
night owl. So we sold it to the night owl. We did end up after this was the time, this was way 10 years plus ago. No one staged things 10, 15, very few.
No, very
yeah.
little.
Yeah, there was
there was no staging
There was
companies.
one staging
Flo.
company, Flo.
Flo was the only one with
Flo
Isabella.
and Decora.
Decor was
It
so
so
expensive.
expensive.
Expensive,
So
man.
no one staged
Yeah.
anything. So I basically, this second bedroom was just causing so much of a issue. So we got it staged, and I specifically
Staged?
asked to get it staged with bunk beds. So it had bunk beds, and because we needed something that could
Yes.
show that you could have a kid in the room, and it had some bulk to it. So we got just that bedroom staged. Everything else was not staged. Just the bedroom, because I spent so much time already, and at that time, I couldn't actually afford to it. She couldn't afford to get it staged. I was just like, I'm gonna pay for it, but I can only stage one room because this. And I was just honest with her. She's like, I appreciate that. So we got staged in a bunk bed, and that buyer just had twins.
Oh my God, are you serious?
Yeah, so he was just like,
This is
he's
my
like,
life.
This is a sign, and I was like,
It's a sign, man.
and
It's a
so
sign.
ended up that he bought that listing. He's still a good client of mine. Him and his parents are still good clients of mine. They love their condo, the uniqueness of their condo. They love it. They still live there, and yeah, that's the So basically, that's my stale listing story. That
This
I
is
have
so
there.
funny you say that because just recently I was in the lunch room of Oakwyn downtown.
Right. Right.
And underneath that "Work Hard, Stay Humble" sign, and the crew, one of the team members of one of our awesome teams, he says, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna go do a showing at 583 Beach." I'm like, "Oh, you sound like you're not really excited to go." And he goes, "Well, we've had it for some time, and right in front of it, there's like, it's a huge problem. Our biggest problem is that there's development that's going to happen in front, right?" And I'm like, "Okay, well, my suggestion to you is to hit it right on. So when people come in to your showing, you're not going to like immediately try and like skirt around it and like walk around it, and you need to show the advantage of it." So Mike, is you're totally right. I said, go up to the window and talk about how cool that development's going to be, and how it's going to add to the view, how it's going to become an active view, and how it's going to become this really great piece of history in Vancouver, and you get to witness it and like get into it and get excited about it because people feel that energy, right? And he goes, "I never thought about that. I should probably just like go for it," and just like, I'm like, if I was showing it, I'd immediately walk out to the patio. Like, this is who I would like, look at the view, and then I'd be like,
Face
that's
your
going to be
fears.
this. Get into the things that make it that you're scared about,
Right.
and dive in as much as you can. And I think when you're dealing with stale listings, there are some 3 or 4 things that you can do to suggest to your clients.
Yeah. So you want to change your approach. When things are going. You've gone a couple weeks without showings, without lots of inquiries. So obviously you need to change your approach, and you want to you want to put your doctor's hat on about like what diagnosis is this going to be, like why isn't it selling. So a couple of things to look at really closely is price. Obviously, a lot of stale
Pricing.
listings it's because of price. The price is inaccurate. It's a wrong price, and really. You want to how do you approach your sellers about price?
I am really all about taking hard facts of what's bought and sold.
Bingo.
In the recent like 2 weeks. I actually have listings that are are dated like for a couple weeks from now,
couple weeks or
right?
a month, yeah.
And then I say, we're not going to even talk about price until that week happens,
Yeah.
because it has to be really showing the landscape of what's happening in the market.
Because it could change.
It
and
could
it is
change.
shifting right now, right?
And some people are saying, well, are you going to do the price low strategy and then get the high bids? People have asked me 2 things. Are you still doing that strategy, Morgan? And 2, are you doing the DRPO, which is the direction of offers? And personally, my team, we're losing the DRPO because it's just, there's no point of it anymore. We're not seeing the same activity as we would have 25, 40 showings. Now we're seeing like half of that. So I think that's 1. And 2, the pricing strategy, it really, you have to give the suggestions to your clients to see how they feel. So one of our clients right now, they've had it listed with a very, very reputable agent prior, called me and said, "Hey, can you take on this expired listing for me?" I said, "Sure." And of course, I see what they've done, and that strategy doesn't work. So my suggestion is, let's go a different way,
Right.
which is mine is priced under the ones that are currently listed
Yeah.
at this point right now.
Right.
So
Yeah,
I mean,
it's having that conversation about expectations of price with the seller is always a tricky one. One is, before you enter into that environment, you want to build rapport and
Yes.
establish trust and establish your expertise. So like this is really important when you're talking and discussing price with clients, price reductions, price changes, refreshes. You want to demonstrate your value and your experience and your knowledge. So if the seller gets any hint that they're smarter than you or they know more than you, you're screwed.
and just so
So-
everyone knows, sellers right now are talking to 3-4 agents. They're not just going with one anymore in the last 2 years. They are comparing.
Yep.
Every agent.
Right. So you want to
Go in.
you gotta
Strong.
demonstrate value.
Yes.
Okay. And demonstrate your expertise.
Yes.
And demonstrate your expertise. So how do we do that? So we can talk about, if you're an experienced agent, you can talk about, you can tell a story of your successes and your.
You can bring a couple of your MLS listings that you just recently sold well over asking,
Yep.
and show the strategy that you had for those two things.
Yeah.
And the marketing pieces that you provide, and how you execute your exposure.
Totally.
That's huge.
Yeah, totally.
Your team.
Right.
If you have a team
Yeah.
status.
And if you're with Oakwyn, you're at the top office in the board.
I'm just going to say that. That's with new agents. That is what you draw on. You take that stat sheet that we have for all of our agents, which I have had so many realtors tell me they have won over vets, like veterinarians.
Yeah. Veterinarians. Yeah. They've
Vets.
beaten some.
Because of that stat. So if you aren't using it, guys, use it. It's
Yeah.
huge.
Being affiliated with the top office in the real estate board is like something that demonstrates value and demonstrates expertise. So like, obviously that's huge. So you want to qualify all these things before you talk about price, because the seller's going to then be able to accept what you're saying. Obviously being prepared with market knowledge is a key thing to kind of go over when you have a stale listing. So like looking at that, and then I always like first to ask the client, after you've demonstrated value, what do you think? What suggestions?
Every time I try to do that, they're like, "You're the professional. Tell me what the price is." Go ahead, role
play.
Okay, tell me.
Role play. Just let's just play a fun game.
Okay.
Okay, let's just take a wild guess as what you think the price should be.
Well, that's why I hired you, is for you to tell me.
Oh no, I just find it fun because I've worked with so many sellers in the past, and some of their expectations are up here and some of them are down there. So like, I always find it fun to kind of figure out where you're at, like just as a fun thing. I have all the data.
1.9 million.
Okay. You're out to lunch. no. And then I say, okay, because I like to make decisions based on data, facts, and figures. And I brought all those with me. They're in my trusty little file here. So yeah, it's always good to know.
Here are your 3 or 4.
Yeah, exactly.
Here are your 3 or 4
But then you
things.
most of my clients, we have a colloquial kind of like friendly relationship.
Yeah.
I talk a lot about family. I
Yes.
joke around a lot.
Rapport heavy.
I go really rapport heavy. I talk about what they do for a living. I take my sweet time looking, like when I go through a tour of their home. That's typically the way I start. I
Yes.
build tremendous amounts of rapport before we
Yes.
hit the dining room
Yeah.
table or the kitchen table. So much rapport is being built that they're just like, they're ready to play a fun game with me when we talk about price.
That's
price
good.
game.
That's good. That's good.
Yeah.
Care. That's the big thing. You want to
Yeah.
show people you care.
Oh yeah.
Because or
Demonstrate
else
that
it just
care.
doesn't work. You're not going to win. I
So-
always say, like, you gotta get that hug by the end of the
Yeah, Morgan
things.
says that if she's hugging the client at the end, it's like a
slam dunk.
dunk.
I just went into one. I'm gonna give you a little piece of advice, people. But I went into a listing. He was interviewing really good agents, like really good, like ones that I'm like kind of scared of. Like I'm like
Him?
I'm
Or
not good.
her?
No, those two are better than me. 100%, they're better than me. They're better than me.
I don't know.
And then I thought to myself, you know what? You gotta be you. You gotta be who you are. And that's one of the things is they can see right through it if you don't love what you do.
Mm-hmm.
And so my biggest piece of advice when you're going in there, show how much you love what you do. Show how much you care about what their next transition is. And really, number one, show how much their trust in you means a lot, because I think the trust is huge. And I
Because
got
that's like an emotional
trust.
like that's an emotional reason for them to use Morgan versus like
I tell
you have all
people-
the other stuff too.
I
You
tell
have
that to people. I'm like,
all the marketing.
you're gonna
and the
meet all
knowledge.
3 agents that you're talking about, because he told me who he's meeting. I'm like, we all do the exact same thing. We really do. We have really similar marketing, not similar marketing, but
Quality.
good marketing.
Quality, yeah.
We all have teams that are beyond
In
the
top,
best. Yeah, the best.
in the top of the city.
So really, at the end of the day, Ben, the only thing that is going to make a big difference is who you trust.
Mhm.
And I'm like, I'm just gonna tell you a little bit about myself.
Yeah,
and
then
so
he
he's
says,
like,
my name's
"Oh."
not Ben. And you're like, sorry,
Yeah.
Trent.
yeah. Ben, actually, that's other big thing, guys. You want to win a listing? Mike actually taught me this a long time ago. Make sure you say their name like 18 times.
Yeah, I say people's names like a million.
Yeah,
and
like
one
he
times.
remembers names so
Yeah.
well that I'm like, how do you do that?
Yeah.
It's so annoying. I'm like, I need to know that. Because now I'm like starting to repeat the names in my head so I remember. Still not good.
Yeah, you're getting
Okay,
there.
so staging.
Yeah, staging is a big one too. So if
Bonuses.
yeah, so this is one. So in some cases, you just want to choose which diagnosis strategy is going to work in this situation. So I had another client who had a condo in Richmond that didn't sell, and I was taking over for another agent as an expired listing, and I employed a bonus. I didn't change the price, but I put a heavy bonus on.
Like 25 grand?
Yeah, I put a
That's
heavy.
what people want to know.
I put a heavy
How
bonus on, and it sold
how much?
immediately. And I know that that's so like, if someone from the public hears that, they're just gonna be like,
Well, listen, there's a building that has 18 listings in it. I have one that's like directly the one right below. If I put a bonus on it, who do you think they're going to sell? Like, I'm sorry.
yeah. So like,
just like, they're
I
gonna give me
know
the bonus.
We're not, agents are not supposed to do that, and it actually does frustrate me to the nth degree that.
Not when you get one. That's what everyone's thinking.
That's you didn't say
I don't
that.
do any
That was
buys
that was
anymore,
the devil
man.
on your shoulder.
So it sucks.
I'm gonna tell
Mark
you.
that out.
You're gonna be the devil. I'll be the angel.
Yeah.
This is not. We're playing roles. This is not the representation
not
of
the
Oakwyn Realty
representation.
or any
We're
of its
realtors.
subsidiaries.
Not when you get a bonus. Cha-ching.
I'm gonna order extra chopped up fajitas today.
Oh my god! I just couldn't get the tossed baked thing.
Yeah.
Couldn't deal with it.
So that's another strategy you can employ to incentivize agents to show your listings, because more exposure means more opportunity to sell, obviously. So I think, guys,
Let's leave it. Let me
leave
tell
it at
you.
that.
So
Oh.
stale listings, price sharply. Make sure you get the strategy down. Proactive marketing, cold calls, getting like targeted marketing,
Yeah,
events,
bonus
human
stuff.
connection with people out there. Staging bonuses are ways that you can kind of manipulate that a lot as well. And I just want one tip that I think everyone should know is extend that listing time right now. Like
Yeah.
make sure
Don't
that you're
do
not
the
doing the 2
so,
months
Yeah,
is
don't
minimum.
do the 2 month minimum.
Yeah.
Kind of
Do
talk
like
about
4 to 6
Yeah,
if you can.
if
Yeah.
you can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Okay,
it.
guys. On that note, thank you so much for listening to the Oakwyn podcast. If you've enjoyed this podcast, please rate it 5 out of 5 on the podcast platform you're listening to it on. And if you want to learn more about Oakwyn, go to oakwyn.com/join. Type in the message box pod.
2022.
Oh, no, evolve.
Evolve
Yeah, there you
2022.
go.
Evolve 2020.
And you
You're
get-
not going to get it if you do pod, guys.
Yeah, and you get a free piece of mystery swag.
Thanks,
Okay, guys. Till next
guys.
time.
Have a
Thanks
good
so
day.
much. Bye.